I didn't used to be a cream guy, but I like little cream these days. It's kind of like a lazy latte, you know? Just makes it smoother. Oh, well, let me say hello to the Wicked community. Pinkerbell, don't forget the wrap snacks. This is good advice to Pitchfork Dragon. And look, we've established on this stream, there's always time to run to the corner store, even during the stream, even if you're hosting it, if wrap snacks are in the potential offering. Good to see you, my friends. Hey, look at that. I hope I did time this well. If I put something in my coffee says Pitchfork Dragon, it's probably whiskey. Fair enough. I go back and forth. I don't like sugar. Once upon a time, I used to, and I don't know what changed. I normally like the bitterness. Although I will say, a little splash of milk these days. It's good. Not always. I have to have one coffee milkless still. Pink. Oh no, I didn't heat the milk. See, this is why I like lattes, because you heat the milk or cream or whatever you use, and then that's the same temperature as the coffee. It still bites back at you a little bit. I changed up the way I do my coffee, and I'm enjoying it so much more now. Yeah, it's fun. Keep things fresh. Pitchy? Well, it always is. Cuts down on the acidity. Makes sense. I do feel that. Okay, let's get to less serious things, which is to say Republican politics. Boy, if you're a Republican, and I understand that my live audience is not, they're people I like. But for when I clip this later, if you're a Republican, I have good news and bad news for you. I just realized I don't want to go through a whole thing. I'm going to record this on OBS. Give me a second. If you're a Republican, I've got good news and bad news for you. And here all of it is. All of the problems pretty much all the problems in America, they're your fault. The voter specifically, they're your fault. And look, I'm not going to ask you to, you know, get out there and try to justify your belief system. It's just us talking frankly. And I know if you're angry, it's because I've said something that would make anybody angry to hear. But it's in my earnest opinion, from my assessment of the world that I've tried to make. That's what all the country's problems boiled down to. You do not know how any of this stuff works. In the best case scenario, you think you do, but you never check. You don't have an internal consistency to your belief system. One thing contradicts another. You don't know what a state representative is versus a U.S. representative. You don't know what powers the president has or is supposed to have. I have described it before as a belief system wherein you squint at the rule book until you see what you want to see. And the Republican Party is a criminal enterprise which builds itself off of ignorant voters, and that is you. Now, that sucks to hear. I know. But I'll explain to you specifically why I believe that. And I'm going to offer you something here. And I'll offer it to you right now before you I ask you to sit through all the rest. I'm going to offer it up front because within my own belief system, this is also true. That means you have all of the power, Republican voters, to fix the world overnight, to reshape the world into one that you want to live in. You, Republican voters, could fix this country tomorrow. It requires you to have the humility to acknowledge when you've been wrong. It requires you to have the decency to take responsibility and to admit when you've been wrong. It requires all these things. Here's why. Here's why I think all of the United States' problems are on your shoulders. Shoot, you know what? I'm trying to stick to a truth-telling only policy here, even in jokes. If I'm being fully honest with you, I don't think it's all your fault. I think Democrats do actually hold a big part of the responsibility here. But look, it's because they're trying to get your vote, Republican voters. So I still put it on you, I guess. Here it is. You don't understand that the fact that your kids have worse lives than you are a direct result of Ronald Reagan and your worship of that guy and the Democrats' worship of that guy. All you know about Ronald Reagan is that he was a president pre-2000s. I don't think you know what decade he was president in. It was the 80s. But he was a president pre-2000 that everybody says was really good at being president. That's all you know about Ronald Reagan. The reality is Ronald Reagan, I'm not even going to try to talk to you about how he was a criminal. He was a criminal. He did crimes in the White House that went unpunished. But the reason that those crimes aren't necessarily why your life is bad today. What he did do is something called trickle-down economics. It was also called Reagan economics, or rather Reaganomics. But yeah, trickle-down economics. It was the belief, it was the sales pitch that if you give tax breaks to your boss's boss's boss, if you give tax breaks to, the richest among us, then for some reason, what they'll do with that money is reinvest in their own companies. Reagan beat Democrats so hard that Democrats got us scared, and they changed their economic policies to match the kind of stuff that you fall for all the time, to be more like Reaganomics. That tax policy alone, there's other things he did that were also disastrous for US economics, but that philosophy, also you could describe it as something called neoliberalism. That is why the generations that followed had less and less money, because we found what actually happens when you give tax breaks to the ultra rich is they just keep the money. They can only eat one meal at a time. They can only wear one pair of pants at a time. So they don't go out buying hundreds and thousands of pairs of pants for themselves. They don't go out buying dozens of meals for themselves at a time. What they do is they take that money, and because they're already rich and they don't have debt, they put it in the bank and it stops moving around our economy. It stops moving around our economy. That is basically the worst thing that can happen with a dollar. What you want is for the dollar to go into my hand and then into their hand and then into another person's hand and then into another person's hand. And that moving around of the dollar keeps the economy healthy. You, Republicans, consistently vote for people that give tax breaks to the rich. That's their whole policy plan. Tax breaks to the rich. And you don't understand how any of this stuff works. What I just explained to you, if you got this far and you sat through it, first of all, kudos. You're hearing somebody, chastising you, and you're at least hearing what I think is true. You're willing to listen to my delusions. That is admirable. That's an admirable thing that you've done to get this far. So take that same patience and consider the fact that before I said that whole thing about what trickle-down economics is, you didn't know. You didn't know. And up until now, you've been supporting people whose main deal is that, whose main idea of how the government should function is built off that process. So, why is it a political party can have a voter who votes for them but doesn't know what their main objective is? That's you. Before I explained trickle-down economics and Reaganomics to you, you either hadn't heard of it or you'd have heard of it and thought it's a good thing and I won't look up what it actually is. Well, it's because you get your information from a bubble. You're in Fox News or Newsmax or whatever party-approved platforms you're told to listen to, and you loyally listen to those. You only ever listen to people that agree with you. And the whole time, not one of them explained to you what was happening. They told you that your economic problems were the fault of brown folks. Because everything they'll try to tell you is the fault of brown folks. They didn't lay out clearly what happens, did they? No. If they lied to you about this, ask yourself what else they lied to you about. They lied to you about 2020. Fox News lost the better part of $1 billion because they lied about 2020. You shouldn't hang out in a party. You shouldn't support a party that needs to deceive you to get your vote. And at the very least, once you find out they've deceived you, you should never listen to them again. Fox, cross it off your list. Never take anything they say as granted ever again. Don't listen to them. What's the point? They've been demonstrated to be liars. Were you aware of the fact that in court, Fox had to say that what it does is not news? Tucker Carlson said in court that no reasonable person would consider what he does to be news. Did you ever get your news from Tucker Carlson? Tucker Carlson, when in court, said that you shouldn't. The problems we're enduring are your fault because you do not care to know the truth. Because you listen to liars. I'll tell you another strategy they have. This is how they lock you in. This is how they know that you'll eventually hear something like this, find out they're liars, but they know they'll get away with it. It's perhaps their most important social strategy. It's something that the Nazis recommended. Truly. They accuse everybody of doing a version of the things they do. Remember January 6th? Remember there was that big committee about it? What did the Republicans do when they got control of the House? They threw together a big committee to talk about the president's son's laptop. They try to make it seem like everybody's corrupt. They know eventually you'll discover they are corrupt. And they try to make it seem like that's just how we all function. That's just how every political party is. You don't have a non corrupt option. So you should choose the one that hates the same people you do. It works. You fall for it all the time. And I see you out there. I see y'all in the comments of some of my other videos targeted at you. And you very rarely address what I'm talking about. Usually, what you'll do is make an accusation about the other side that has nothing to do with the topics covered in the video. And that doesn't surprise me because that's what you think politics is. That's what you think political discussions are. It's a game where you try to chalk up negative points. The confusion I still have about you Republicans is that I don't see why you play the game. I understand that you think I'm playing a game, that you think I don't really believe any of the things I'm saying, and you're sitting at home and you think nobody really believes the things that they say about politics. Nobody really knows how any of it works. All you do is memorize random lines and throw them at each other. And in the end, question mark step happens, and then we kill all the Jews or whatever it is Republicans are trying to do these days. Haitians, I think, is the people you know, or is it Palestinians? That's both Democrats and Republicans. No, it's the Republicans that hate legal immigrants from Haiti. Okay. Point being, you think that's what we all do, but I don't get why you do it because I don't actually do that. I don't make things up. I don't memorize lines I don't understand and then yell them at you. All the things I say, I genuinely believe. And I know you don't believe the things that you say because they don't make sense. They're either simply not true or they're nonsensical when you talk them out slow. I got a whole show where I do nothing but talk it out slow with folks. And they don't make any damn sense. So you don't believe the things you're saying, but you go on saying them. Why? Why participate in the silliness of this? Don't you have a career? A hobby? Something based in reality that you do. Are you trying to understand the world? Then why add to the chaos? by repeating things you don't understand. And I know you don't understand them because they do not make sense. And because every time one of you adorably tries to cite a source, it's freedomeagle.ru. When one of your boys, Tim Pool, gets found out as a Russian, let's be generous and call him patsy, a tool of a foreign government to spread anti-US propaganda, destructive propaganda, you just ignore it. You pretend like, "Oh, that never happened. Oh, but that must be everybody. Oh, but surely the Democrats are the tools of somebody else. Surely progressives are all getting paid lots of money." I mean, I'm getting paid lots of money, but that's because I'm fantastic at sex, and I prostitute myself on Fridays. But the that's irrelevant to my political beliefs. You are the reason that the police are heavy-handed because you permit it. Because mostly when you hear about it, they're being heavy-handed against black people, and you're told that's the way the world is supposed to work. You're the reason your kids have less money than you because you keep voting for the Reaganomics Party. You're the reason why Florida is getting swallowed up by storms. You're the reason South Carolina got hit by megastorms. You're the reason that we continually keep having the hottest year ever on record. You're the reason that Christmas is going to be too hot for sweaters in about a decade. You're literally killing Christmas because you choose to simply keep supporting a party which tells you these problems aren't real, and that's the reason we don't have to do anything about them. It's more fun for you or more comforting for you to throw your full back into hindering people who are actually trying to help than it is for you to take part in the solutions to these problems. I do want to understand you. I want you to know fully that I'm trying to understand you. And I think I ought to be respectful to you as we discuss these things, Republicans. But being respectful to you means not lying. And so I can't lie and say that I respect you because I don't. Because I think I know what you're about. And I think you know that you're a destructive force. And I think you know that you don't know anything about politics. You have no idea how it works. You don't understand the things you're reading. And I know you don't because I've read them and they don't make any sense. So, all the people that point to Tucker Carlson's theories about the world or what Tim Pool has to say here and there, you just liked their vibe, their evil, shitty little vibe. But you didn't understand the things they were saying because the things they're saying don't make sense. They don't align with reality. So I'm asking you, respond in the comments. I know you'll hoot and holler and squeal piggy squeal, but do genuinely try to respond in the comments. What? Why are you pretending? I I might not be right about my theories on how the world ought to be run, how the US ought to be run, how my state ought to be run. I might not be right, but I have a coherent theory. I've given it sincere thought. You don't. You repeat propaganda and you think that's all the world is. My question to you, Republicans, why do you bother? If you think that's what everybody's doing, why would you participate in such a thing? What's fun about this to you? You remind me of dogs when an emergency's happening and they don't realize it. They think it's playtime, you know? You see a baby about to fall off its bike outside, and you're trying to get past your dog, you're trying to run to the door, but your dog's just going, "Are we playing? Are we playing?" That's you guys talking politics. You're playing a game while Rome burns. You can solve all of the actual tangible things that's wrong in your life. You can have more money in your pocket. The roads can be paved. The water can be clean coming out of your faucet. Your home value can go up. The cost that it required you in the first place to buy a home can go down, or at least getting a loan, the interest rates can go way down. Your energy can be cheaper, gasoline cheaper, heating your home cheaper. Your healthcare can be free. Like every other civilized country on planet Earth, your healthcare could cost you goose egg, gang, not a thing. It doesn't even have to cost you anything in taxes. We could pay for your healthcare entirely with increased taxes on your boss's boss, aka someone you've never met who lives their whole life bouncing from mansion to yacht to fancy hotel. You could just make it a slightly less huge yacht, mansion, or slightly less fancy hotel for them, and they'd still live like princes, and you would have free healthcare. You could do all that stuff. You just have to stop pretending. It's okay not to know things. There's a lot I don't know. But when you click on a Fox News article, when you turn on Fox News, when you look at Newsmax, when you tune in to Tim Pool or Steven Crowder or any of these other known liars, and you hypnotize yourself, you shut your brain off, and you look up the latest ways you're going to bother people. You're causing all your problems over and over and over and over and over and over again. Here's a wild thing you might try. We've been on a steady decline for 40 years, the US. Consider that perhaps you should act differently. Just try it out. Got an election coming up. I don't expect you to support Kamala Harris, but Republicans, just stay home. Trump did nothing for you, and you don't actually understand any of the policies he's pitching. And you know you don't, because if you did, you wouldn't. I know you don't, because if you did, you wouldn't even consider voting for him. So because you don't understand the policies, I ask you, set the personalities aside. And for your own benefit, just hang out at home. Anticorporatus Harris did an event with Liz Cheney earlier. Good. I saw it. I thought she did very well. More to life than just the Bible, says Dominico. True. Wolfie, I would love to talk with you specifically. All of you are a lost cause. One day you will regret what you have done and the people you listen to. You are brainwashed. You just don't know it. This guy is an idiot. Wolfie, let's you and I talk for a second. I'll be nicer. And thank you for wishing me good luck. Hopefully you stick around for a second, because you're the guy I want to talk to. Why is it you think we're brainwashed? Because I explained why I think you don't actually understand any of the policies you passionately support. Passionately support. because they don't help you. And if you were to sit down and read them, you would see that they are not in your benefit, or that you've been just flat out lied to. And for the record, you aren't entirely wrong. I am an idiot. That's fact. But these folks aren't brainwashed because when I pitch something to them policy wise, we go over it in pretty excruciating detail, at least when it gets to the point of actually implementing it. There's reasons behind the things we recommend. There's studies. There's data to go off of. And you might not agree with any of it, but there is reasons. But the stuff you recommend, for example, voting for Republicans who consistently support trickle down economics. You we've known. It's 40 years after now, but we've known for 30 of those years without doubt that trickle down economics simply doesn't work. And all it accomplishes is less money in your pockets, way more money in your boss's pockets. You don't know these things. You don't know how any of this stuff works. Again, because if you did, you wouldn't be voting for it. So why? Why are you doing it, man? Do let me know. Hopefully you're still there. Nina Canadian, Reaganomics puts so many citizens at risk. Shysters with wealth can shirk accountability as they avoid regulations and manipulate loopholes. Their poop slides downhill, not trickling wealth. Facts. Absolutely true. DJX, I saw it too. Kamala said, even Jimmy Carter voted early. Look, I don't like Liz Cheney, but I don't get the hatred for the world tour she's doing with it. You and I don't need to be convinced to vote for Kamala Harris. We know what's up already, and she knows we know what's up. We know what's going on with Trump. I'll say this: I would be concerned if she started pitching policies that Liz Cheney really supported. That would be frustrating. Yeah. But she's not. She's just saying, look, this Republican, who I don't agree with on anything, also says Donald Trump is no good. And she's right to do so. That's a point I think we need to make to all these folks. And you know what? I just talked about policy for 20 minutes. I shouldn't have. Because that's not even really what's important here. What's important is going to be what I bring up next. Apple won't let me off top chat. I had to fire up my droid. Oh boy. Sorry, AC. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Oh, that was good. Yeah, what's important is what's coming up next. This is the source of the Cassandra title of the stream. If you guys are familiar with a group called Really American, they're a network. I'm a fan. I think they spun off of Midas Touch. Maybe not. It's that Chip Fellas stream. They also have something called Shrinking Trump, which talks about Trump's undiagnosed and totally diagnosable mental issues. They had a guest on recently, which very eloquently made a point I've been trying to make for some time, which is to say, Merrick Garland is a terrible attorney general. He has shirked his responsibility. And this guy lays out what a proper Department of Justice would have done on January 7th of 2021. Here it is. Patrick Thibodeau, good to see you. Let me see this here real quick. My take is Cheney perpetuates a vote against instead of a vote for. I just don't know how much she helps. With us, not at all. I'm tempted to show you the other thing. Here's what I think y'all need to understand. This stage of the election is not even about reaching. Hold up. Where is he? It's not even about reaching this guy. They're not trying to reach you. They haven't been for 2 months. They're not even trying to reach this person. They're trying to reach people who don't know who Kamala Harris is. They're trying to reach people who could be standing in line next to Tim Walz as he's talking about politics and not know who he is. They're talking to people who know next to nothing, for whom Liz Cheney needs to be introduced in the first place. And they're hoping a certain number of them vaguely remember 2004. They're hoping, I mean, we're talking about a battle over folks with only the vaguest sense of what is going on. So all the tactics they're using are going to be annoying to you. And you just have to accept that in your heart. I think the pulling out Liz Cheney's a fine stunt. I do. It's shocking to me, though, that it's even necessary. There should be no Republican Party. As of this point in history, it ought to simply be dead. And hopefully it will be for the next election. Because here's Really American talking about how this stuff should have been handled.
Well, you guys are doing the Lord's work here, because this is an alarm that John
incentive to murder. Okay.
I might have had the wrong
Pledge of Allegiance with Donald Trump in the White House. What would it be like to see your children alternating between their duck and cover drills and mouthing empty
cripes? Okay, let me try this again.
Your wife, Kitty, has been raped and murdered.
Oh, good.
No, and I FedExed it to. Couldn't had a real producer, as in that made some potentially fatal errors, and we have made.
Here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. We have made some potentially
fatal errors, and they were all made by the Democrats. And I think the Democrats bear they'll bear historical for judgment for this if there are historians in 40 years. And what I mean by that is, had a Republican been in had Democrats attacked the Capitol and been directed by a Democratic president to do it, and 147 Democrats after it, while they were hiding in the closets like Ted Cruz, while the people were banging on the door with their pitchforks, if 147 Democrats after that insurrection, after that attempted coup, still voted against seating the president who won, the Republicans would have done the right thing, which is the second they got power on January 20th of 2021, there would have been an immediate roundup of 148 people, and it would have been the president and those 147 traitors, and they would have been rounded up for seditious conspiracy. And the idea that you allow people who have just done this to get out and create an alternative narrative, to create alternative media sources, that is on the Democrats. It's especially on the very worst decision Joe Biden ever made. He made such great decisions in picking.
I think I know what you're going to say.
It was
Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland, who
Okay.
was, I described him in my book. I didn't use his name. I didn't know who he was at the time, but I described this man with obsessional personality dynamics who's thinking, well, let me collect affidavits while they're collecting AR-15s. You don't do that. When when the man attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer and was caught in the act, they didn't say, all right, let's collect affidavits for a couple of years and let him go hammer out his problems with other Democrats. We said, no, he's too dangerous. Well, Donald Trump and those 147 members of Congress needed to be made an example of. They needed to be in prison right away, no bond, and they needed to be, and what they needed to hear was, what other Republicans needed to hear was, if you are with these people now, you will join them and bunk up with them in prison, because in a democracy, we have peaceful transfers of power. And whether these 147 men were co-conspirators, as some of them we know were, because they were showing people around the bowels of the Capitol beforehand, or whether they were accessories after the fact, either way, they were guilty of the murder of 5 cops and of seditious conspiracy. And why the Democrats why Merrick Garland could not figure out that if 5 cops died in this thing, imagine if a 16-year-old black kid was sitting in a car outside of 7-Eleven and his buddy went in to rob the 7-Eleven and shot the guy at the desk, shot the cashier, and the cashier died. That 16-year-old is going to get tried as an adult, and he's not going to see daylight for at least 20 years, because he's going to be tried for murder because he was an accessory. Well,
Such a good point. Let me let him finish.
what do you think those 147 members of Congress were, and why were they out on the loose, and why were they allowed to create
If the Republic falls, it will be Merrick Garland's fault.
Facts. Absolute facts, gang. 147 people were in Congress, Republicans, of course. They're the worst human beings in America. That means they're Republicans. 147 of them experienced the insurrection, came back, and said, we're still going to go along with it. They should have been put in prison that very night. Marjorie Taylor Greene should have been put in cuffs, put in a squad car, and taken to a prison cell. She should still be in prison. They should spend maybe the rest of their lives, maybe just 30 years in prison cells for what they did. We haven't missed the opportunity to do that. We've just delayed. Merrick Garland did not get moving on this until he was publicly embarrassed by the January 6th committee. And what did the January 6th committee do? They made information available to you and me. That shouldn't have even been necessary, because you don't, frankly, need detailed information to have simply viewed the events of January 6th. It happened on national television. Trump lied about an illegitimate election. He lost 60 court cases about that. There was no reason for anyone to believe that there was a problem with the election. Every one of those 147 people that voted not to acknowledge the results of the 2020 election, they had that information available to them in detail. They had reports about it. You might say, oh, but they had doubts. Well, they had an opportunity to explore those doubts. And what they definitely didn't have, because it does not exist, is any evidence that the election was tampered with. It wasn't. So they are traitors. They deserve prison. They should have been tossed into prison right quick, just based on the reasonable assumption that they were and are a danger to all of us. Even Wolfie, who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the wall. They're a danger to all of us. They're trying to undo democracy. Old school Democrats were put in power. You want to know why progressives fucking hate voting for Democrats? It's because of this. The only thing they do is delay doom. On any level. Global warming, delay doom. They slow down the rate at which we're flying towards a brick wall. They don't steer. They are a conservative party up against a regressive party. That's all we're talking about. Progressives want, and this is going to shock you, progress. I have a view of America, the political factions, that basically comes down to this. MAGA is a regressive party that breaks the rules for its own politicians' personal gain. In other words, so long as those politicians promise to harm people for the amusement of their voters. So it usually ends up being brown people or homosexuals or some group that these people pick on for amusement. They're allowed to break any rules and still get votes. And the rules they break, of course, always enrich themselves. Republicans will subtly break rules. They break rules with finesse. And they try to create unfair rules that are not necessary for them to break in order to personally profit. Democrats are much better than those other two groups. All they do, the centrist Democrats, is follow unfair rules and help create unfair rules that they can follow to personally enrich themselves. For example, Nancy Pelosi. She was wealthy because of insider trading, which was perfectly legal, that she helped make and keep legal. Progressives are the only group, a political group in the US, that are actually trying to make life better for anybody other than themselves. And I don't just mean non-progressives. I mean they're politicians. They're the only group of politicians in the country that are trying to serve the people. But they're up against Democrats, Republicans, and MAGA. It's maddening, isn't it? Just maddening. I do think we should start having frank conversations with anybody who votes for anything other than a progressive. Because what I just said, what I said at the beginning of the stream, is true. The folks who are voting for anything other than progressives simply don't know what they're doing. And I also think they know they don't know. And the most charitable I can be is that they think nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what any of this stuff means. Because they've fallen for the Republican grift. The right-wing grift, I should say. But, frankly, I haven't been very successful. Somebody is doing the Lord's work out there. Their name is an actual cloud. They put together a spreadsheet. It's in the description. What to say when people say, "What problem do you have with Trump?" Obviously, there's too much to remember, so this is to help. This was put up by an actual cloud. Link is in the description. It's tips, tricks, and facts for talking to people. You can contribute to it if you like. Paul Manafort, Trump retribution, insurrection electors. Here's an example. Look at these. Look at this. You got links for people to follow. You have the documentation for all this stuff. I mean, this is how you actually have a productive conversation. Let me put that back up. So here's a summary. Trump and his associates, this is for the insurrection fake electors. Trump and his associates conspired to send fake slates of electors to the Capitol in order to illegally overturn the election. Then here's Tina Peters getting sentenced for her involvement in that. He fomented an insurrection. He told the Secret Service not to stop the rioters that were marching to the Capitol from carrying weapons because, quote, they aren't here to hurt me, end quote. In other words, violence by an angry mob is okay as long as it's not directed at him. 2 sheets of paper, a summary that's an article by the Guardian, and government info directly from the government. It's the January 6th report. Gang, not unlike Kamala Harris, we have to convince a group of people that don't know they are living in critical times. You have to convince folks out there who don't know what a district is, who don't know the difference between the House and the Senate, who don't know where even generally in the world Israel is, who don't know anything, to the point where they may simply forget to go out and vote on voting day. And if they remember it's voting day, they may say, next year. That is a huge percentage of America. Now, some of them are Republican. And I put that in quotes because it's what their parents were. Or they went to school back when Ronald Reagan was considered an admirable person. And Young Republicans were an organization in their school, and those were really politically active kids. And they knew about this stuff. They must be right. So they say they're a Republican because they want to seem responsible without knowing anything about anything. Use that sheet. If you know how to save a website as an icon on your phone, do that. So you can walk around with it ready to go in your pocket every single day. And when you get an opportunity to talk to somebody about this stuff over the next couple of weeks, you can not only know what to say, but you can have the proof right there in a link. Send it to them. It's a great idea. It's a genius idea from an actual cloud. Thank you. Oh, Jesus. Anti-corporatist. Isn't Israel just a state of mind? A genocidal state of mind? Yeah, this was pointed out by Wicked Foxy Dragon a while back, and Pitchforks Dragon says it well. Largest demographic of the American voting bloc is the non-voter. The only reason you would be a non-voter these days is because you literally don't know what's going on around you. Want to know why Hitler got into power? The culture of America. The very culture of America was present in Germany. It was uh, there was the reason Nazis were called National Socialists is because they were a response to genuine socialists. They were Germany was on a progressive upswing, and a far right party, which would eventually be called the National Socialists, was a response to them. But a big chunk of Germans just had no idea what was going on, and they thought, "Nah, well, we'll support Hitler. He's a change of pace. He's a firebrand. He sounds like he cares. He really wants the job. Well, let him have it." We're a disappointing species, and the worst elements of us are amplified in the Americans of the early 21st century. Let's make it so that the Americans of the mid 21st century are worth a damn. You don't have to know everything. Hell, you don't even have to know how any of this stuff works. You have to be honest about what you do and you don't know. And you have to, and this is key, you have to sincerely be trying to make the world a better place. That's it. Right now, it's not acceptable to not vote. If you're somebody that doesn't know anything about anything, and you're sincerely trying to make the world a better place, you must vote, and you must vote for Harris. Not because Harris is good, but because Trump is full on, no softening it, full on evil. And he's telegraphed it. And the only case he can make for himself is to try to convince you that other people are evil. The Uton. He tries to make scapegoats out of folks so you'll worry about them and not look at what he is. He is a con artist. He is a criminal. He is a wannabe fascist. He is a vile wretch of a thing that ought to be in prison. And he will not be there unless we put a wave of Democrats in office and then insist that we get a new attorney general, one who cares about justice. Kamala Harris will be a great opportunity for that. She can replace the attorney general without it being a scandal. She can say, new age, new leadership. We should take advantage of this moment. We who give a damn. We who spend our free time trying to understand the world and how we can make it better. If you want to convince non-voters to vote for God's sake and vote straight ticket Democrat, use the link in the description, brought to you by an actual cloud. Consider subscribing to their channel as well, just as a thank you. Maybe they'll make good content. I only looked at one thing they put up 7 years ago, and I thought it was fun. But subscribe for the hell of it, because they seem to be trying to do good in the world, and I'd like to help them. Use that link to convince people. And understand it's not terribly difficult. These are people who are making very consequential decisions based off wrong facts. You have the inherent advantage that every progressive has, that Democrats have never had, that frankly no other political party has ever had in the United States. You're telling the truth. At least as far as you can see it. You're telling the truth. It's a superpower. Need a Canadian. I haven't said hi to you yet. Hi. Atticus among us. I have a feeling that Harris might rock the boat a little. I think you may be right. I think you might be right, but I think we got to make her. I think we will. Nina Canadian, not easy to pay people to vote, but can they create a tax incentive? Reimburse $10 if they vote and file their taxes? I kind of like HST reimbursement here. Maybe, but people pay themselves to vote. Vote for billionaires to pay for stuff. And there you go. By the way, Nina, I recommend you and Elaine and all of our other Canadian friends also save that link. Because I notice that a lot of gross U.S. conservative politics infiltrates Canada. And you have a unique advantage in that you can use nationalism to your benefit. When you hear people talking about liking Doug Ford or Polyev or whatever, you can say, "Oh, that guy acts like U.S. conservatives, like those scumbags." And when they say, "I like Trump," or whatever silly ass thing they say, and say, "Really, the guy that did this? Really, the guy that did this? Aren't we better than them? Aren't we? Are we ever going to pass America in the great race of nations?" I think now's the time, and all we have to do is not be as corrupt as these idiots and just keep showing them true links, true facts from the States, from your southern meth head neighbors. Because frankly, it doesn't hurt us for you guys to rise up, nor does it hurt you for the progressives to take over in the United States. It helps everyone. And I willingly volunteer the United States as an example of what not to do. Ooh, forgive me if I'm wrong, but don't Australians get fined if they don't vote? I don't know if we should do that. I don't know how I feel about that. But a discussion for another time. That's all the stuff I had to talk about. I really wanted to insult some Republicans, and I really feel like I did that. But also explain to them in a very insulting way why why I thought they should nonetheless operate in their own best interest. I bet I swayed them all. This has been WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. My name is Jake, and this is my good friend, Donald James X.